All right. So we are live. Hi, this is Head About to the College for Youth. We're here for another episode of College Readiness with the extraordinary Satanja. So we're going to talk today about the college essay. I'm going to let Satanja take it away for the first few minutes to talk about all things college essay related.
Hello, all. It is great to be back for um, our July College Readiness edition. Um, as we enter, this is I guess officially the first month of summer for students. And so we're hoping you guys are having a good summer break and relaxing, but also reflecting, as we always encourage, because there's so much that comes throughout the school year that it's now time to use this summer break wisely. And as Heather mentioned, we will be talking today about the college essay. And while for most of our young people who have applied for higher education this year, you've already submitted, you're probably already accepted into the school of choice, and we're excited for you. There are those coming behind you who are in high school and are going to need to start preparing and utilizing their time now to prepare for their application and what is the essay portion of their application to apply for a 4-year or 2-year college. And so, you know, the essay, as we've discussed in the past, is a critical piece of the application because it goes beyond the numbers, right? It goes beyond what your school grades have been, what your test scores are, and they put words to paper about who you are and what your values are, why you're going to school, experiences you've had and how they shape you. And so it's really important because it's really a reflection moment. It's a very personal, as they call it, the um, personal essay. It's a personal reflection of just what are what's the story you wish to tell to the admission board that will review this essay as part of your application to better understand who you are and what you will possibly bring to their school, right? And your character. And so it's an exciting part of the application, I think, because it's actually one of the areas that you have the most control over as a applicant, where, a lot of times with essays, I mean, with standardized exams, you are learning to score well. You're not being able to demonstrate your personality, you're demonstrating your ability to, study and apply yourself in a test setting. And so this element of the
Where, a lot of times with essays, I mean, with
uh,
standardized exams, you are learning to it's it's dual duty. Study and apply
fair
yourself.
enough.
Hold on one second. And so this hush. Element.
I put myself to
It
be
didn't want
quiet.
to. It didn't want you to stop listening to yourself.
Exactly. Um, as I was saying in myself, previous and current self, um, that yeah, this is the element of the application you have the fullest control. So the more time you give yourself, like in any element of this, to craft a story that answers the question, first and foremost, answers the question to the prompt that the university or the Common App provides, and also has meaning and impact for you, is, I think, the two sort of main goals of what you're trying to accomplish by, creating and crafting an essay. It's not just about reaching word count limit. It's not just about getting words on a paper, but it's about doing two things. One, responding to the prompt that is provided and in full, answering the one or many questions that you are responding to. And of course, giving a truthful recount of some experience or some feeling that you have. And so this year, I was taking a look now on the Common App, which for many of those who are probably familiar, the Common App is the platform in which most students will utilize. Is the portal most students will use for to submit their application. And the Common App has a set of 7 questions that for 2024, 2025 applicants, they are presenting that you get to choose one and respond to. Funny enough, it's saying that it seems that they've kept the questions from the 2023 to 2024 application the same as the ones for 2024 into 2025. And they reference that the reason is that there's generally an overall satisfaction from all the stakeholders involved, the students, advisors, teachers, college admission boards, that these questions are robust enough to help you be able to answer from a variety of viewpoints, depending on what you want to talk about. So it's nice that there's some consistency, so that, those who are maybe sophomores right now, you can be looking at these questions, anticipating that these are questions you will likely have to answer, or similar versions of these questions you will have to answer in 2 years' time when you are creating, when you're in your senior year of high school and you're applying for college. And for our incoming seniors, it is time to get ahead of the game and start ideating on what is the important elements of yourself and your experiences that you want to present in your application. And so I think it's important that, like, I think there's a process for this, right? I would advise that anyone who's going to be applying for school in the fall, when applications open, that you begin to look at these questions now. And I'm happy to actually even share my screen if possible. Heather, I think I might need
Yes,
you
I
to,
got you.
great,
Yes, yes, ma'am. You
great.
should be able to share it now.
Okay, so I will demonstrate, I would love to show, all of the questions that are presented as the, the set of prompts for the 2024-2025 application through the Common App. This is only through the Common App. If you apply to a school that doesn't take or utilize the Common App, then your questions that they provide in their application portal may look different. But for the majority of our students, this will be the prompts you have to choose from. So you see, there are some questions about identity and your background, which I think question number 1 speaks highly to the change that has recently come down through the Supreme Court about, the ability to integrate or to acknowledge the race of a student in their application. And so, or to, provide any sort of, so the colleges or Common App have somewhat done a loophole in that if you feel that, elements of your identity are important to you and what it means to be an applicant to applying to their school, you can speak to that identity that you have. And that could be a great question to respond to that helps them to better understand you as a person, because you are also, you're made up of your identity, your interests, your talents. And so question number 1 provides somebody the opportunity to speak about that. Number 2, it speaks to the lessons we take from obstacles. And so they're asking for a time or a challenge or setback that the student has faced and what you learned from the experience, right? So when I say there are a number of questions that could be within one prompt, this is what I'm speaking on, in that they not only do they ask for you to provide a story of a time you faced a challenge or a failure, but they want to know how it affected you. That's part 2. And what you learned from it. That's part 3. So if you're recounting a challenge about, experiencing, we can just use any sort of example that you struggled to make a team, let's say you tried out for a basketball team, and the challenge, setback, and failure you face is that you didn't make that team, right? And how that affected you might be that you had set your identity, your high school experience as thinking that, being on the basketball team would provide you X, Y, and Z. And so without it, you felt affected by X, Y, and Z. And then what you learn from it is that you still had to make do and have, you can build your identity, you can build your interest around other things, and that led you towards playing the guitar instead, which has facilitated your love of music and your desire to pursue a degree in the art of music. So I think that would be a full story, right? You're starting from the time of you had a vision and a dream to do something, it didn't happen. How that affected me is that it changed my perspective, my confidence on this thing, but I learned that, there are other things that I could put my energy towards, my efforts towards, and I'm grateful for it. Right. So there's three prompts kind of within one that it would be valuable to make sure you answer. Question number 3 is reflecting on a time where you challenged a belief or an idea, right? And then what prompted your thinking and what was the outcome of you challenging that belief or that idea. So that is, I think one of maybe a potentially controversial question, depending on what you choose about the belief or idea, because you don't know what the belief or the idea of the reader is. So I think that would be a question that, I would say, unless fundamentally is really important to, how you're approaching how you treat your life. Maybe changed from eating meat to vegetarian, let's just say. And you questioned or challenged a belief that all your life that, in order to be healthy, you had to eat meat and other animal products. And I prompted that you changed your mindset after learning about sometimes the impacts of this on animals, the impacts of this on the climate, and the outcome is that, you feel more connected to, your commitment to the the earth and nature by not eating meat anymore, and you feel that this is an important part of your identity. So I think that could be an interesting conversation, and something maybe that aligns to what you're studying. But I would be careful about just like picking controversial ideas for the sake of controversy, right? Thinking about what is that so important about this belief and idea that you challenge that would make you want to write your whole college essay about it. The question number 4 is about something that someone has done for you that made you happy or thankful in a surprising way. How has this gratitude affected or motivated you? Again, another question that all of these are going to require being very thoughtful and very deep, because ultimately, people do stuff for us all the time. People will provide us with things that make us happy all the time. And I think you want to make it a meaningful story, and how maybe you are applying gratitude towards doing things for other people and not just like letting the gratitude stop with you. So I would be, interested to hear how people respond to that question. Number 5 is discussing an accomplishment, an event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So interestingly, I think some people can maybe get caught up in just talking about the accomplishment itself and the height of the accomplishment and the joy of the accomplishment. But as we said, reading the question in full, it's asking that it had whatever this accomplishment is, that it sparked something in this now new period of growth and understanding. And what is that, and how are you affected by it? Number 6 is about a topic or idea or concept that you find so engaging that it makes you lose track of all time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? So I think this is kind of an interesting question, because it's all about being a learner, right? Or being about, someone who has interest and passion about something. So I think this could be a good question, essentially, that says like, what are you passionate about and why? And how do you act on that passion? How do you learn more about it? So I could find that being a very interesting topic. And then the last one being share an essay of any topic of your choice. It can be one you've written already, or one that responds to a different prompt or one of your own design. I've never seen that before. So I'm interested to see how, it seems like there's a lot of flexibility there to say, if none of these 6 prompts that they provided you speak to something that you really, really care to speak about, how can you get creative to maybe tweak a question, combine some questions, and respond to an essay of your own choosing? I would say that this is probably one of the like less favorable questions to choose, unless you truly have a very straightforward and captivating question. Otherwise, there's more than enough ways for you to play around with the existing questions. Um, and then, it puts a little bit more pressure on you to have thought through what sort of question you want to respond to before even writing it, versus others who use the first 6 prompts. The question is there. You make sure you outline what is the question asking and how am I going to answer it. And you don't have to do the work of actually drafting a question yourself. So I would say that, yeah, this is a helpful website to go on, commonapp.org, and looking at the Common App questions. This was published in February, so it's been out for a while now for the 2024 through 2025 essay questions. And it gives you a leg up if you're an incoming senior to begin now brainstorming what are the questions that I want to speak about, and how will this amplify a different side of me from my application that I maybe haven't already spoken about. Heather, I don't know if you had any thoughts on these questions. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I think this is all phenomenal. And you know, when we think about sort of what people should be answering and how they should be answering and what that looks like, um, thinking about, you know, I think sometimes students get they have certain thoughts about what they should answer and how they should answer it and what that should look like. And I mean, I sometimes think that like some of the questions that are a little more challenging, like the number two, I always love that kind of question. It always seems to be question number two with
Mm,
the obstacles or the failures or so forth. I think that's a question that students tend to shy away from, but I don't think they should. I think it's one of those questions that you can really shine on an essay like that. And so, you know, also just I was talking with a student the other day about essays and they were like, how do we know if it's a really good topic? And talking to people, talking to your family, talking to your friends, talking to people that know you. I think the other thing is for essays to be authentic, having your authentic self. I mean, everybody's not going to have some story that's about how they um you know aid somebody in a burning fire and then invented electricity. I mean, when it's not really what most people are going to have. So if you think about, how can you tell a compelling story, but that is your truth? It's your truth. It's your story, and it's honest. I mean, that's really the most that a college can ask of you because it's going to be your story. And I mean, you lived the life that you lived. So if you're telling your authentic story, then that's going to be interesting. I think it's tough. I think a lot of students sort of go through a lot of challenges in terms of thinking about what they did tell their story and how should they tell it and how are they going to distinguish themselves. The only other thing I would say about that is trying to be cute or tricky or I don't know, making stuff up. Or I was talking to some students the other day and they were talking about some essay that they know students doing. They're like, what the letter S means to you, or I don't know. So like, what does that even mean? What are you talking about, right? So
mm,
I think ultimately you got to be your authentic self. You got to be true to you. Um, you know, I would pick the adventurous I would get in terms of, some of this would just be in terms of picking a prompt that's going to really make me shine and not
yeah,
picking the one that, I feel be the safest one.
yeah,
And get lots of people to read it over and over again and um, make sure that you're making your best foot show forward and shine and reread it till you can't reread it anymore. And that all takes time.
yeah,
Takes time. I mean, you can't. This is not for December 30th of the year that you're gonna maybe December 30th of your junior year,
yeah,
but it's definitely not for 2 days before you're gonna submit it. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of crafting,
yeah.
and takes a lot of reading through.
Yeah, and to your point about the question, right? I think sometimes you actually have to take a little bit pressure off the question and a little more pressure on the answer, right? There can be anybody,
Yeah.
some people are going to write great essays for every single one of those questions. So it's really more about your answer being like, which question am I positioned to write the greatest
Mm-hmm.
story that's authentic to me? Um,
Mm-hmm.
not one that, as you said, is a little bit sort of uh, several people might have the same sort of framing and the same sort of, answer. How do I make mine unique based on what I've lived through, what I've gone through? Like maybe you don't have the
Mm-hmm.
biggest challenge ever, but something that you're really excited and captivated by is something that not many other people are focused on. Not many more people have a lot of passion for, are not as committed to it in the way you do, or you uniquely are, are losing track of time in your life to do this like amazing thing. And that could be simple as baking, right? It's not like everybody can bake, but like, why do you do it the way you do it in your community? What impact has it, has
Yep.
created? That's a better story for me than like what challenge that person has come through. If the challenge is just that, studying for your SATs was very hard. Like, there's just like
Mm-hmm.
challenging questions are great because they show a bit of character, but also
Mm-hmm.
so do your positives and your highlights. So I think there's no good question. There's only good essays based on you putting a lot of thought and time and, as you said, drafts into it. So in terms of thinking about the process between how you get from looking at this question to drafting an essay, we would say that, you definitely review these questions, think about them, maybe strike ones that you don't feel called to, have three or so that you think are very interesting, maybe outline like just a bullet point of like, how would I answer this question? How would I answer that question? What's a story I would pull for this question? Great. Now, maybe I go to my parents, maybe I go to my guidance counselor, maybe I go to my English teacher and I say, hey, I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking about writing my essay. It's due in 3 months. And here are the topics I'm thinking about. You know, your parents might be able to say, well, don't you remember a different story that this? Maybe that changes your perspective. Your guidance counselor might say, oh, I've been talking to other people and they're also picking this type of question and have similar stories. So maybe not that one. And then by the time you get to like brainstorming and you bring it to your English teacher, they can say, wow, this is really creative. This is really great. Here's how you might want to like elaborate. And you have a council of people who have helped you strengthen the approach to the essay before you even write an initial paragraph,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So that could be literally one whole month of doing that, taking those things
Yep.
back and forth and XYZ. Now you have 2 months on the clock and you're like, okay, I'm gonna write draft number one weekend. I'm gonna start writing draft number, I'm gonna bring it to my council again, have them read it, have them reflect, ask for feedback. Take,
Mm-hmm.
a weekend and a half later, okay, I'm doing draft number two, and continue on until it's really at its best, key, at its best and its sharpest and its clearest. And obviously, there's lots of prompts and AI generators these days that you want to be mindful of how you use tools to, help you along the way, but also not fearful. I think that, we are in an age where there's going to be a lot of like support that people get, especially if you don't have a council of people you can really turn to because you haven't, fostered those relationships where they're not present for you. I think it's super helpful to be able to like brainstorm on your own and get some feedback on from, a chat GPT or this. But at the end of the day, the work is yours to write that essay, to write it authentically, for it to be real. And then as you need to sharpen the language, similar to how I think back in the day, I used to use thesaurus.com, right? Maybe I wouldn't want to use the word, you know, um, sorry, I would say apologize. It might give me a better, sharper word than that. So I think that's how you have to approach these tools. They're not meant to help you write your essays. This is about you writing your essay. You use tools to sharpen your grammar, to make sure that your like punctuation is correct, to make sure that you are, accurately connecting your ideas. But all of the work has to come from you. That's ultimately what is
Mm-hmm.
important, the voice of the person, because you may have to speak to it on an interview and it has to be real. It has to be truthful. So those are some of the key points I think I would point out along the way about writing the college essay. And of course, there's still supplemental essays, which for those who are unfamiliar, could be the additional responses that your school might give you the opportunity to respond to. And you want to give yourself also the appropriate amount of time to be able to reflect, to draft, to second draft, third draft on these other supplemental things that might be other areas you also want to highlight about your like, personal endeavors.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good points that you made in there. So, I mean, starting with, it's really hard to overemphasize the amount of time this takes.
Yeah.
It's not going to take a couple of days. It should really take, I mean, I really talked to, you made a good point. You made several good points at the beginning. One great point you made was essays really don't change. I mean, that number two essay has been like I call it the failure essay. It's been that I can't remember when it wasn't that. Right? So, I mean, more or less, these essays pretty much stay the same. So if you know that you are working with, more or less the same kind of essays, it's what you're going to be doing. It's very similar. You can start working on these as a junior easily, easily. And, to be honest, if you're going to be applying to a bunch of schools, most of the schools you apply to are going to have a bunch of essays. So, if you're lucky, you'll be one and done. If you're not lucky, which is probably, what is going to happen to most people, you could have 15 essays that you need to do between like, 10 different schools. So the sooner you start on this main essay, which is going to be, the Common App prompt, the sooner you can get about the business of doing the rest of these essays. And that's going to take a minute. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
So I would say, if you're a junior, certainly, like, if you're a rising senior now, I have this essay done before I go back to school.
At
I really
least, of
would.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. For sure. I would not be going into school having done nothing with this essay if I'm a senior. It's just, you got too much to do. You have too
Yeah.
much to do. So, yeah. The other thing is, the sort of trusted people in your life. Your, parents, guardians, grandparents, any of whom can take a look. And you don't have to have a parent that went to Harvard to take a
Yeah.
look at your essay. In fact, if anything, I would say having a parent that can read this essay and repeat back to you what in the world you were talking about, what you said,
Hmm.
look at it for some syntax, some common mistakes. That is who you want reading these essays. So it would behoove you to find somebody in your family that can do just that and basically work with you to and again they don't have to be some Ivy League graduate or any of that. You want somebody who knows you, who cares about you, who can read through, can see some errors and give you some feedback. That's what you want. And
Yeah.
ideally the most important quality this person has is they know you. So they can say to you, well, this seems like your own man. It seems like this is you. It seems like it's an essay that will support how you are trying to convey who you are. It conveys who you are. This is who you are.
Hmm.
So all of that goes to an authenticity that you really can't beat. And so having a family member be able to do that is that's incredible.
Yeah, and again, that's why we're saying it's not everybody has that, but it's time to, look to those people who are around you and ask them, even if they've never done it for you
Hmm.
before, to support you in this
Hmm.
way. And that's why you have to give them
Oh,
time because they may not be able to do it at your beck and call if your essay is due in 24
right.
hours.
Right,
Uh,
exactly. And that's the other thing. I mean, doing things that late in the process, it's not very fair to the people in your life. So, I mean, if you're really about the business of having people who can actually look at your work and give you real feedback, giving them 24 hours notice to do that is not as the young people say, that's not the vibe.
Hey, look at you out there.
That, that I know, yeah, that's my one cool thing.
It's true, and you'll get more out of it if you give people more time. So I think
Correct.
it's important.
Exactly. Time is the thing. Time is it's time, time, and more time. Um, time,
Time.
time, time, time. That's what you need. Okay, well, we got a couple minutes left. So, anything else you want to tell our friends about what they should be thinking about? And also, we've been thinking a lot about sort of how we're gonna go forward with our programming here, and also getting some content to you that you can have, and review over and over again through some videos and so forth. So, stay tuned with updates from us. But for now, anything else you want to, and hopefully we're moving to an evening time. So, we're gonna really spread the word about it for next month. We're gonna be here on a Thursday again. So we will let you know about that. I think, hopefully evenings will work a little bit better for some of you. And, we'll definitely get the word out about that. So Tanji, anything else you want to tell folks here about how's essay process and we can talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about for next month.
No, I think again, like this is the time to really shine in your essay. And so I'm happy I think we're always happy to support with any questions people have reviewing it. And any sort of further in advance you start, the better the better the essay is likely to be. Don't get discouraged if your first drafts essentially all get scrapped. Continue to just like focus and know that this is a critical piece to like spend your energy.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
Hopefully next month we will be back with a little bit more conversation on the like just kind of overviewing, I guess, as we think about people will be going back to school before
Mhm.
September college readiness. So just kind of like what are the things to be thinking about? How are we preparing for the college timeline that is set up for you from that September date onward? And how to use the
Yep.
remainder of your summer effectively. This is the time to gain those experiences that you can talk about in your essays. So that's internships, that's jobs, that's, apprenticeships, all of those things are the stuff you should be doing right now. And we hope that you are taking time to do, even if only for a few weeks out of the summer, so that you can have a story to tell.
Exactly. Yep. So stay tuned. We can't wait to be back to see you again.
Yeah.
And you know, keep working on those essays. It's all right. Bye everybody. Have a great